Good evening, everybody. We are in Exodus chapter 16 tonight. If you want to open your Bibles there. Let's go ahead and start with a word of prayer. Our Father in heaven, we thank you for this day that you have provided to us. We thank you for the warming temperatures. We thank you for the blessings we have here at the Brownsburg Church of Christ. We thank you for our brothers and sisters here and for our ability to study together your word and to understand the messages that you have left for us and to use the examples that have been given to us here in the book of Exodus to continue to grow and strive to be more aligned with how you would have us to live, more aligned with Christ. Please bless all the classes this evening, Father. Help us to continue to grow in our love for one another and our knowledge of you. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, so Exodus chapter 16, we left off, not in chapter 12, Exodus chapter 16. We left off with the children of Israel have started their journey into the wilderness. They've escaped from Pharaoh. They've escaped from Egypt. They've crossed the Red Sea. God has delivered to them. Last class, we talked about the song of praise and of thanksgiving that the people sang together after crossing over the Red Sea. And not only the thanksgiving of what has been shown to them and what they've seen God do and how God has delivered them, but even this song of promise of what they believe God will do for them going forward and how God will deliver them from their other enemies and how their other enemies will shake with fear before the power of God when they hear the message of God delivering his people from Egypt. And so we see the people show this great belief and trust in God. And then we wrapped up chapter 15 with the story of the Israelites going to Marah, and there's the testing that goes on there where they're wanting water. They haven't had water for 3 days. They come, there's a place with water, but it's bitter water. It's not drinkable water. And so they toss the log into the water. It becomes sweet. It becomes drinkable. And then the people are, delivered by God, right? But God says, hey, this, he was testing them. And he says, if you will diligently listen to the voice of the Lord your God and do that which is right in his eyes and give ear to his commandments and keep all his statutes, I will put none of the diseases on you that I put on the Egyptians, for I am the Lord your healer. And then we didn't talk much about this, but verse 27 at the end of chapter 15 says that right after that, they come to Elim, where there were 12 springs of water and 70 palm trees, and they encamped there. Right? So we see a moment of testing, and God is going to test the people throughout their time in the wilderness, and we'll see how they respond to their testing, and we'll see God's reaction to their response. But while he does have this trial period for 3 days where, things are not easy. And I mentioned last class that it's not an easy time for them in the wilderness. Even though they've been delivered, there is going to be difficulty of being travelers through the wilderness. And while they are going to add a lot more time to that than God originally would have wanted them to have, it is going to be a difficult period of years ahead of them in the wilderness. And so it's important for us to remember that as we're seeing these difficulties they go through and some of this grumbling and complaining that we're going to hear about. But we do also see while God tests them here in chapter 15, immediately after that he does provide them this blessing, right? They get to stop, and if you want to say they stopped at the rundown motel, then he takes them to the 5-star right after that, right? And while I don't think it was, hey, let me have you slum it here so that you can better appreciate the higher amenities here, I think it's a matter of, hey, put your trust in me. Trust that I will provide for you. Trust that when you are in need, and they will be in need throughout their time in the wilderness, trust that I will provide what you need to survive, right? And we talked about a couple classes ago, going back to the very presence of God being presented to the people while they were in the wilderness, right? While they're walking, while they're walking through the wilderness, they have this visual of God being with them. They have the cloud, they have the pillar of fire, right? They see those things as, hey, God's presence is with us. God goes with us, right? And the encouragement they're meant to take from that. And now we're seeing here God showing them like, hey, not only am I with you, but what does it mean for me to be with you? Trust that I will provide for you. Trust that I will be with you in all manner of ways, right? Not just by my presence alone, but with my provision, with my protection. And so God does test them there. And, we're going to see some more tests here in chapter 16. But just think that sets up kind of very well that the end of chapter 15 really leads well into chapter 16. So let's go ahead and read chapter 16 together here. Yeah. Yeah, 20, verse 20. Yeah. Yes. I don't know. I mean, maybe my thought might be because Moses is writing this. I don't know if yeah, yeah. I'm not sure. That's a interesting. Yeah, yeah. I'm not sure. That's a interesting point there. I guess I didn't think too much of that when I read through it, but that's kind of an interesting thought. You'd think you'd lead off with the more popular one, but who knows? But yeah, my thing would just be, I guess, if Moses wrote these first few books, then maybe that's part of it. Could be. I don't know, but interesting. No, good question. Kind of interesting to have those little trivia questions in there, and I don't usually answer them very well, so need to get a better trivia teacher on that. Somebody else probably would know better. But let's jump into chapter 16 now and continue with the Israelites in the wilderness. All right, so they set out from Elim, and all the congregation of the people of Israel came to the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the second month after they had departed from the land of Egypt. And the whole congregation of the people of Israel grumbled against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. And the people of Israel said to them, "Would that we have died by the hand of the Lord by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the meat pots and ate bread to the full. For you have brought us out into this wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger." Then the Lord said to Moses, "Behold, I am about to rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a day's portion every day, that I may test them, whether they will walk in my law or not. On the 6th day, when they prepare what they bring in, it will be twice as much as they gather daily." So Moses and Aaron said to all the people of Israel, "At evening you shall know that it was the Lord who brought you out of the land of Egypt. And in the morning you shall see the glory of the Lord, because he has heard your grumbling against the Lord. For what are we, that you grumble against us?" And Moses said, "When the Lord gives you in the evening meat to eat, and the morning bread to the full, because the Lord has heard your grumbling, that you grumble against him, what are we? Your grumbling is not against us, but against the Lord." Then Moses said to Aaron, "Say to the whole congregation of the people of Israel, 'Come near before the Lord, for he has heard your grumbling.' And as soon as Aaron spoke to the whole congregation of the people of Israel, they looked toward the wilderness, and behold, the glory of the Lord appeared in the cloud. And the Lord said to Moses, 'I have heard the grumbling of the people of Israel. Say to them, at twilight you shall eat meat, and in the morning you shall be filled with bread. Then you shall know that I am the Lord your God.' In the evening quail came up and covered the camp, and in the morning dew lay around the camp. And when the dew had gone up, there was on the face of the wilderness a fine, flake-like thing, fine as frost on the ground. When the people of Israel saw it, they said to one another, "What is it?" For they did not know what it was. And Moses said to them, "It is the bread that the Lord has given you to eat. This is what the Lord has commanded. Gather of it, each one of you, as much as he can eat. You shall each take an omer, according to the number of the persons that you have in your tent." And the people of Israel did so. They gathered, some more, some less. But when they measured it with an omer, whoever gathered much had nothing left over, and whoever gathered little had no lack. Each of them gathered as much as he could eat. And Moses said to them, "Let no one leave any of it over until the morning." But they did not listen to Moses. Some left part of it till the morning, and it bred worms and stank. And Moses was angry with them. Morning by morning they gathered it, each as much as he could eat. But then the sun grew hot, and it melted. On the 6th day they gathered twice as much bread, 2 omers each. And when all the leaders of the congregation came and told Moses, he said to them, "This is what the Lord has commanded. Tomorrow is a day of solemn rest, a holy Sabbath to the Lord. Bake what you will bake, and boil what you will boil, and all that is left over lay aside to be kept till the morning." So they laid aside it till the morning, as Moses commanded them, and it did not stink, and there were no worms in it. Moses said, "Eat it today, for today is a Sabbath to the Lord. Today you will not find it in the field. 6 days you shall gather it, but on the 7th day, which is a Sabbath, there will be none." On the seventh day some of the people went out to gather, but they found none. And the Lord said to Moses, "How long will you refuse to keep my commandments and my laws? See, the Lord has given you the Sabbath. Therefore on the 6th day he gives you bread for 2 days. Remain each of you in his place. Let no one go out of his place on the 7th day." So the people rested on the 7th day. Now the house of Israel called its name manna. It was like coriander seed, white, and the taste of it was like wafers made with honey. Moses said, "This is what the Lord has commanded. Let an omer of it be kept throughout your generations, so that they may see the bread which I fed you in the wilderness, when I brought you out of the land of Egypt." And Moses said to Aaron, "Take a jar and put an omer of manna in it, and place it before the Lord to be kept throughout your generations. As the Lord commanded Moses, so Aaron placed it before the testimony to be kept. The people of Israel ate the manna 40 years, till they came to a habitable land. They ate the manna till they came to the border of the land of Canaan. An omer is a 10th part of an ephah. Chapter 16. All right. So, let's talk about it. So the Israelites in the wilderness, right? We've got some time in behind them now, right? So we've had the interaction with the Egyptians, and now they're in the wilderness. They're in the thick of it, right? Time has passed. We mentioned in chapter 12 that, Moses told the people, hey, this is the start of a new year, right? The new year starts today, this new calendar, right? And so this chapter starts by telling us, hey, it's the 2nd month and 15th day of this new calendar we're living under, right? So some time has passed now since, the Passover was, instituted, and they've moved out. Funny enough, not that it's exact or anything, but, we could call it's February 15th for them, right? Maybe we can call it that just so I don't have to say 2nd month, 15th day. That's a little long-winded, but, right? So they've had some time out here. We've had some interactions already. They've had the struggle with water, going 3 days without it. And now they're departing from Elim, which was this fine place in the wilderness that, had palm trees and had springs for them to enjoy. And now they're going out into the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and between Sinai, which we know is going to be a popular place coming up, and some big stuff's going to happen there. But what do we catch the people doing here at the start of chapter 16? I think we've been going through some repetitive trends throughout our study in Exodus, right? We've seen several plagues over and over and some similar reactions to Pharaoh, and I think we're going to see some similar reactions to Israel, unfortunately. But what do we see, John? What's happening here? Yeah. Yeah, there's a lack of trust. Yeah, we're seeing the trust waver constantly. And your thought about the, seeing the pillar of the cloud and seeing the fire and things like that. I remember there was a has anybody in here seen Jurassic Park? Everybody seen that? Okay. I know I promise I won't do movies every time, but like you know, pretty good movie. I would suggest watching it. But there's kind of this idea of like the wonder when they first see these new clone genetic dinosaurs. Like, oh, we're taken back to the time of the dinosaurs and we can see the T-Rex, and obviously everything goes wrong, right? Well, now they've made 650 Jurassic Parks, if you didn't know, right? But I remember there was like a story of one of the directors or the writers, you know, tried to make one of the more recent ones based on this picture he saw of, it was like a huge like dinosaur in this display, and there was like a kid just in front of the dinosaur just on his phone. Like, he's not impressed by it, right? This is no longer impressive. It's just become the common. It's just become the typical, yeah, same great view, cool view, still the same one as yesterday, and eventually it's just the once awe-inspiring just becomes common. Now, I don't know that, how they reacted each day seeing the pillar and the pillar of cloud and the pillar of fire or anything like that. But clearly, just the common recurrence of everyday life. To me, it's similar to how we are, right? Like, it's just life is ever abundant in our face, happening. Something's happening. It's hard for me to shut off, like, thinking of the emails I have to get to and the work I have to do tomorrow. And I know, some people, it's like the only way they can shut down their mind is they have to do some certain activity, whether it's like watching a movie or sleeping or I don't know, but just to like get their mind to stop getting to that point. They're just always focused on the next task I got to do tomorrow and the things I've got to get done and the responsibilities I have to accomplish. And I think it's easy for me. It's getting easier for me to put myself in the place of the Israelites with just the concerns and struggles they had of just day to day getting ahead of their focus on God, right? So I do find these very relevant to me of just like, yeah, I mean, sure, it's a little bit different, but, Tyler's already talked about it. Just seeing the enchanting creation around us, right? I see it every day. And yet, I remember saying earlier today, like, the snow's about to melt and it's going to look really ugly all over the place. Like, I just remember thinking, I was like, it's pretty when there's snow and you can't see how damp and ugly and, brownish gray the grass is. But, I've seen it every day. I've seen sunsets. I've seen, sunrises. And, shame on me for letting them be less than what, the majesty that they hold. And so, I am curious of like being in their position, but I also get it at the same time. And so I can see how the grumbling gets there. Katrina? I find it difficult. I agree with the thought of, yeah, like, I know I'm not as grateful as I should be, and I don't think that means, and I know, because I don't think God wants us to just randomly. It's just, I expected this. You promised me this. I was pretty much guaranteed this. And if I don't get this now, or when I choose to want to have it, then you've messed up. Now, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm totally dependent on you giving this to me, but you've messed up, right? And I think maybe I'm just hearing my parents say this, but, sometimes it's just the way you say stuff that is going to get you in trouble. It's not what you said, it's how you said it. And there's, I'm sorry, I just 30 years of my mom saying, "Excuse me?" But, and you just know, it's like, all I had to do was just say it in a smarter tone, not smart aleck, but smarter tone, and everything would have been okay. And so it's, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And so, and I don't think we fully would apply that just to this specific situation because I've never gone to my parents and been like, "Would that you would have just killed me." All right, right? But it does grow from the same issue, doesn't it? Right? It's a further testing, like they had when they got to, when they got to the wilderness and got to Marah, and it was just like, you know, this thirst. I mean, what are we going to do? What's going to happen? And here, there's no food. Like, this is the worst thing I could possibly imagine. And of all the stuff I can relate to, I wish I had a list, and maybe God will show me this list, at judgment, of just like all the times I probably said, this is the worst possible thing that could ever happen. Right? And it's just how quickly Israel is taken out of all those years and all the struggle they had to now just, we're hungry. And it's the worst they could possibly imagine. It'd be better if we just died. John, and then over here. Go ahead, John. Yeah, just so much different, this situation, than what we saw in chapter 15, right? With the song of praise, right? Just the confidence they show there, and it's just like, you've saved us now, and you're saving us going forward, right? And so I believe they were sincere in chapter 15. I believe they felt that confidence, they felt that faith, they felt that trust in God, that He just delivered us from Egypt. He just showed us this great sign with the Red Sea, and we believe, Philistines, Amalekites, anyone that comes after us, they're going to know about this God. They'll be afraid of this God. This God will deliver us. His right hand will smash all our enemies. Right? I believe they meant that. And yet now it's just, so based on how, in some point they got to a point of just like, we were convinced that this status we're in right now, whether it's they fully believed God was going to let them starve, or they believed just the suffering they had gone to this point was making them say, I wish we would have just died back in Egypt. Whichever way you want to look at it, whether they're just saying, hey, the agony of right now of being hungry or the prospect of dying of hunger out in the wilderness, better that we would have died back in Egypt. Either way you look at it, just very openly disrespectful and just showing a lack of gratitude for all that God has displayed for them to know who he is. I'm sorry, I don't know your name, but you go ahead. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, good tie in there with the, bitter water, bitter people for sure. Yeah, you could take it as we can complain in the church, right? Not even just outside. Man, and I wish this. I wish we had a better auditorium class teacher. I don't know, of course not. Not when you have the best guys and the most humble. Go ahead, Dan. Um, Save me from myself. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's well said. The idea of just they, in a lot of ways, it's very similar to the misunderstanding people had about what Jesus was going to be, right? Of just, oh yeah, we want this new king, we want this new kingdom, but we're pretty sure this means you're going to go destroy all the Romans, and we're going to be on top now, right? And like this is how it's going to be. And sure enough, here is, I think Dan brings up a good point. This place is pretty nice. Nile's, pretty good spot. Now we go out into the wilderness, and things aren't necessarily easy. The train's not easy. The multitude that we're bringing with us, not easy to transport. Maybe at this point, all the gold and stuff they got, maybe now that's okay, it would have been nicer not to have to carry all this stuff or whatever. So, yeah, it's just all those things that were once blessings have now, been a hindrance to, the appreciation that they should have had. And I think it's very easy to say, yeah, many times I wasn't just praying for God to do this. I was praying for him to do it this way and at this time. And, if he didn't, sometimes even if he gave me what I want in the long, I was mad he didn't give it to me when and how I wanted it. So absolutely. Go ahead, John. I should. And I try to. I think I heard that whole, make sure you thank God, you give all the gratitude before you ever ask of anything. And, I think Tyler's done some of those lessons on like looking at the frame of how, the Lord's Prayer is framed and how little, us, what we're asking for versus like praising God. First thing, he mentioned last lesson, very first thing is, glory to God, hallowed be thy name, right? That takes preeminence over everything. But yeah, I know I need to prioritize the thanking part, but sometimes in the back of my head, I'm like, oh, I came here to pray because I need this or I want this. And it's just, it's hard sometimes to get out of my mindset of just like, yeah, I need to stop and do it because even if I don't want or need anything, just to thank God for the day, for, whatever, the safe travel, the house that I have or whatever it is, just going to God in those places. And I think those are part of the mindset you think about when you talk about, okay, the mindset that these people could be in. I was making the connection as I was reading this. We hear about the Israelites complaining, right? We hear about it a lot, and obviously this was written down for our instruction and for our growth, and to chronicle this for their future generations to see this and to learn from it. I personally believe, tying this to another person who goes through difficulty and uncertainty, I believe there were bad days for Joseph. And I believe there were days he complained and had difficulty and he was frustrated and angry. But I also believe there's a reason why it's not chronicled. Joseph grumbled against the Lord, questioning why God was putting him through this. I don't think it was because God was saying, flawless man, never did he ever have a bad day. Never did he ever struggle. I think it's because, there can be times when I'm frustrated, I'm angry, and I'm, questioning things. But I'm still leaning on God. I think there's a reason why when David's fleeing from Saul, and we read some of his psalms of difficulty and frustration, and he puts his emotions in there, but always he goes back to, you are my God, you are my deliverer, you are my strength, like he is still, despite the difficulty, despite the frustrations, despite the bad days, he's still relying on God. And I think part of what we're meant to see here is the Israelites here are not to that point, right? When it talks like The wording, the whole congregation of the people. Right? Everybody, almost like with one voice. Just like the opposite was the case in chapter 15 when they all were singing about this praise of this God who would deliver them and would be delivering them. And who wasn't just driving them aimlessly into the wilderness, right? They sang about how God is taking them to this forever home. God is taking us to this established mountain of a kingdom, of a sanctuary where the Lord will reign forever. That's where God is taking us. And now, here we are. Less than 3 months into this journey, less than 2 full months into the journey, they're struggling. The future is blurry now. It is no longer as clear, which is definitely something that we can all relate to. When difficulties pop up, the focus on the goal can waver, and it can become difficult to see past that hurdle ahead of us, especially when, as I mentioned, they're having a lot of hurdles. Like, it's difficult out there. The travel, they aren't living in a luxury, hey, every stop we just get fed, luxury and ease and, 5-star amenities, right? So they're having that difficulty. But I think, it'd be bad if we just focused on Israel's complaining here. I think the big thing, and I think Dan hit on a good point here by mentioning this, chapter 3 of Exodus, right? This all starts because the Israelites were complaining about their situation. And Dan mentioned as well, we would all be complaining about that situation. It was terrible. They were suffering. They were being abused. They were being mistreated, very poorly treated by the Egyptians. But it starts because they were crying out and God heard them. And this story, right, even though we spent all this time talking about, like, man, they were crying, complaining, frustrated, this is still a story of them crying out and God responds to them, right? Now, another thing, I know my dad is watching, so he also says this a lot. So I don't want to critique God here in any sense, but my dad always said, you know what you get when you reward down statistics? You get down statistics. So I don't know, like, this is bad. He'll definitely text me about this. He said he was going to text me during class anyway, but in a way I'm like, God, if they're just complaining and whining, why are you giving in to them? But I think I'm wrong thinking that way. This isn't a story of like, oh, God's rewarding bad behavior here. Hey, they're crying and whining and he's just catering to them. I think it's still showing God trying to tell his people, like, I delivered you because I heard you cried out. I remembered my promises to your ancestors, to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And I remember what I promised to them. And I was going to fulfill that. I am going to fulfill that. I promised you, and I showed you that I would deliver you out of Egypt. I have done that. You just sang, and I have shown that I am going to lead you to somewhere better. I will not let you die here in the wilderness. And so this is not, I don't think, you complained, so I'll just cater to you. I think it's him still trying to, I'm going to preserve you. I am the one you should rely on. I am the one who can sustain you. Right? And so, man, class went quick. We had a lot of good comments. But this bread is going to fall from heaven. I mean, it's kind of crazy how much you just get used to some of these amazing stories in the Bible. And it's just like, we had that snow. I mean, how long has it been now? 2 weeks? 2.5 weeks? Right? All that snow that came falling down. Think about oh, go ahead. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. I guess I did take it that way of, why doesn't it just say, Moses and Aaron and all the people? Like, I, I think, yeah, I guess, yeah, I do believe that we're seeing more of that flipping to how it was earlier on, right? When Moses directly does question God after the people do it, right? He has that tone of questioning and doubt. I guess I do believe that Moses believed there's going to be water provided. He doesn't know when, he doesn't know how, he doesn't know that it was going to be at Marah, but he knew that God would provide for them. And I think it's his trust having to kind of carry the Israelites at times here, of just like, and him interacting with God later on, is kind of the one person who is, aligned with it, and especially with what happens on. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Very good points. Yeah. That's how I took the phrasing of, God testing them. I think that's part of it. Like, you know, do you rely on me? Now like, okay, like in Egypt you were stuck there, things were what they were, but now it's like we're out here, like you could jump ship, you could go off and think you can do it on your own. Obviously, they wouldn't survive out in the wilderness on their own, but you know, are you going to trust me? Are you going to rely on me? Are you going to put your faith in me? Who, God's showing here, like he he should have faith put in him. Like they should have faith in him to deliver. And so, going through this list of all that he's going to do for them, making it fall like snow for whatever they estimate the number was, 2.2 million or whatever your, context or commentary says, millions of people gathering an omer, which is about like two quarts or something like that, or a liter or something. I wrote it down like 15 times, and now I forget what it is. Yes, that is usually how I refer to it, Dan. And you know what's funny? I looked it up and I copied down like the whole list of like all the Hebrew measurements, and I was like, I'm definitely going to use this. And now it's gone. That's why I never have 5 pages of notes, people. It's just 3.7. Okay, so a decent amount of food, enough to where everybody had what they needed, and yet there was still a testing within that, right? They still had to trust. Don't take too much. Whatever's left over, it's going to rot, and there's going to be worms in it. And so they had to trust that the next day God would provide for them. And so still God's testing them, but he's not doing it in a way of like, let's see who quits. He's still just getting them to see, hey, this is what I will do for you. This is how I will carry you through. This is how I will protect you. And they just, I don't know. They're like me. They're thick-headed, right? Takes some beating into them, I guess. Go ahead, John. You can close this out. Yep. Yep. Absolutely. All right, guys. We'll kind of wrap up chapter 16 on Sunday, and then we'll pick up with chapter 17. Questions in the back if you want to pick those up. Thanks, everybody, for your comments.